I did so much yard work yesterday.
I relate. I lost a whole tip of my nail
No, those nails
trying
are
to
so
start
cute.
trying to start the weed eater. So anyways, I'm going on Thursday for just a quick fix, but I did not even notice that I sheared off the tip of my nail trying to once again start the weed eater.
Yeah.
Until I 2 minutes in couldn't start the weed eater, got mad and went and got Jack. And then I looked down and was like, I'm even more mad now.
Oh, that's frustrating. So our weed eater and lawnmower are electric, which I love because in my mind it's easier.
Yeah.
But yesterday I rented a tiller from Home Depot. And it was gas powered, and it was the first gas powered thing I'd ever started. And I did have to look it up, but it was really easy. The tiller itself was really hard to operate because it had a lot of
they jump around and
yeah, well, it had a lot of giddy up, and also the ground was really dry. Ew. So I kind of had to it would motor forward, propel itself forward, and I kind of, this is probably not how you're supposed to use it, but I would pull it backwards so that it could actually dig into the ground a little bit. And I was like, I don't think I'm strong enough to hurt this thing, so it's fine. And I rented it from Home Depot, so but yeah, I tilled my front yard, cut down, I used a Sawzall to cut down all these shrubs that we had that were really overgrown and ugly. And so chopped all those down like a little lumberjack, and then tilled the earth and planted a bunch of wildflower seeds. So right now it looks like a mud patch, but hopefully it will look like a beautiful prairie.
I was going to say, are you doing a natural wildflower instead of a lawn alternative?
Yeah.
That.
Couple reasons. One, it's better for the environment. Two, it's pretty. And three, grass refuses to grow in our front yard. It just won't grow.
I understand.
We've tried to plant grass twice now and it's failed both times. So I'm like, you know what?
Here comes the wildflowers. Yeah.
Natural garden, natural lawn.
That's where I'm at. We've got one part of our yard that is super duper duper shaded because we live right next to woods. And I'm at the point where I'm like, what about clover? Can I just throw a bunch of clover down? I think clover would do great here.
Wild strawberries also.
Yes.
I don't know if you can buy those seeds anywhere, but we have some growing naturally in our backyard, and they make for really pretty ground cover because they don't get too tall. And then they flower, and then of course you have all the wild strawberries.
Wild strawberries. I love that.
Critters can eat, but I don't think humans eat them.
Love plants. I just love. I didn't realize how into yard and lawn things I would be until we bought a house, and I'm way too passionate about grass and how did I get here?
And Turner hates yard work.
That's how Jack is. That's how Jack is. So it's me. We had a very hilarious moment of anti-patriarchy relationship the other day because I was out mowing the yard and I was also in a bad mood because of something, and I was like, the yard work will fix this. So I'm really going on the yard. Yeah. And Jack is sitting on the back porch with a lemonade just watching me, and I was like, what's happening right now?
I know. I feel for Turner because he was forced to do yard work growing up, and that I feel for him, but I don't feel bad for him because here's why. My brothers also complained about having to mow the yard and stuff all the time, but that was their one chore. They didn't have to do anything else, and so they would, and it's a seasonal chore. You only have to do it half the year where we live, and so they just, I don't know, they complained about having to mow the yard and take the trash out, and I was just kind of cry me a river. I'm the oldest daughter. I raised you.
You can do the lawn work while I do literally everything else.
Okay? Yeah. So, but I think he hates doing it. And I actually kind of really like it. I like gardening too.
I enjoy
operating machinery.
Yes. Give me a power tool. Okay. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. Okay. It was so fun with the saw yesterday. I was like, it was amazing.
Does my arm really hurt because our weed eater is so heavy? Yes. Yes, it does.
My arms are so sore today.
Beside the point. So anyways, I did yard work Saturday, and then Sunday we did our Girls on the Run 5K. So I'm kind of like, no wonder I'm tired. This is why I took a nap this afternoon.
Yard work aside, the rest of your work week was probably dominated by MSHA.
It was
mainly, right?
Yeah, largely by MSHA. 3 out of 5 days I was at MSHA. It was awesome. And everybody I've talked to about it has been like, oh my gosh, how's the conference? And quite frankly, I learned something from every single session I went to, which I feel like is not super common for conferences. At least sometimes, or at least conferences I've been to in the past, I was like, well, this was kind of a refresher. Like, I knew about this. And there was at least one little nugget of information I have pulled out of every single session that I went to. So it was really awesome. Anyways, MSHA was great. You came one day and it was so nice to see you.
I know, we got to hang out in person, which was so lovely. And yeah, I was only there on Monday, and there were a few sessions that I got a lot out of, but I do think for the most part, it was kind of like refresher type stuff, which was okay. It was still nice to Oh my God, I just realized I still have to do the freaking surveys from my
That's awesome.
Watch me do this whole thing, because I almost said I got some CEUs, and then I was like,
I need to do the surveys.
Do these surveys, I won't get the CEUs.
Do the surveys. You have like a week, so you have an extra day.
Tomorrow.
That's
girl.
tomorrow. So I know what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna write a sticky note for myself right now. Well, and it's because it was not abundantly clear to me how, like, I thought it was supposed to be like a comprehension question or something. No, but the survey is just like, how was it?
Yeah, it was basically like, rate it out of 5 stars, name 3 things you learned, and some feedback.
MSHA survey. I'm gonna stick this up here, so then when we're done recording. Okay. Because if I don't do that, that's gonna be that's gonna be a major bummer for me. But yeah, anyway, I was only there on Monday, and I feel a little bit of FOMO from Tuesday and Wednesday, and so I want to hear what kind of your highlights were. Yeah. Maybe the biggest thing you learned, or the thing that has like continued to like tumble around in your brain.
Yes. There was so much fun. I'll do like a kind of I'll say the like sessions that I went to, because I feel like I love the titles of like research papers, and I love the titles of sessions because some people get so creative. Yeah, I love it. So Monday I went to, you and I both went to the new speech impairment designation on Missouri driver's license. This is a new-ish program that allows for people with communication disorders and differences to identify that on their license to help in law enforcement interactions. And I think that's special. Other states are doing it, but Missouri is finally getting on board. So yeah, shout out to the mom who spearheaded this whole thing. She was fabulous. So
yes. And I wanted to, not to like blow up your spot, but your husband is in law enforcement.
Jack's a state trooper in Missouri.
I was gonna say, feel free to edit this conversation out if you don't want people knowing your business. But
it was hilarious to start this because he works in law enforcement, and so one of the things that I took away from this experience is that I'm so glad this program exists, but we need first responder training on the other side of this, because it's wonderful that exists, but if the people who are responding to crises aren't educated on it, then it's good as useless. So I was super excited because we connected with them, and they're the people who are behind this program are really looking for those opportunities to connect with law enforcement. So that was really awesome. So love to hear it. Love to see it.
Yeah, I would be interested, maybe off mic later, to hear about Jack's interactions, if he's ever had a moment like this where he's pulled someone over. And
not in the last 4 years. He has never come across somebody who has he's never had an interaction with somebody who has either significant disabilities that require a high support needs or anybody with like a communication difference outside of speaking another language. And so I don't know.
Very cool.
Our next session that I went to, you went to something different, was executive functioning skills, the missing ingredient for AAC.
I'm so sad I didn't go to this one.
Was so good. This was so good. It was such a great session, talking about how we need to support executive functioning to help better access our AAC skills. And so I was like, duh, I love this. I love it when things are laid out to me that I know different parts of, and then somebody puts the pieces together for me, and I'm like, oh, wow. Yes. Fabulous.
So we just talked about AAC for several episodes. And so what was like, if you had kind of one major takeaway or something that you were like, I'm going to take this to work this week and start doing it, what was that from that session?
From that session, it was that you should be teaching literacy day one, which like we're already doing, but it just reiterated it to me so solidly that like we have to teach literacy in conjunction with AAC, and we have to explicitly teach AAC. Like they described that we need to switch our terminology from modeling without expectations into creating language immersive environments for children who are AAC users, and kind of switching that mindset from, oh, we're just modeling, to like, we need to set up their school day. This was specifically for like school providers. So we need to set up their school day to be immersed in AAC, and really pulled on language immersion preschools and school systems that like the whole school is taught in a separate language, to be like, no, this is the way that we teach people to communicate. It's by having them constantly doing it. And I was like, that's a great idea. So
yes, I think that is a really meaningful like transition in language, because modeling without expectation, we've talked about this in past episodes. It's great. It's not always therapeutic necessarily. And immersion schools, that's really cool. I think reframing AAC as like a foreign language or a second language is a really good way to like impart the importance of modeling and teaching AAC to kids.
Yes, that's I was awesome. Super sad. I know. I was super sad. I did have to leave that session a little early because I had to step out for a meeting at my school that I attended virtually. So I was sad to miss the end of it, but that one was really good. Next, we both went to evidence-based practice and neurodiversity affirming care. This one was a bit of a refresher for me. This was one where I was like, yeah, this is good to hear it all again. But I feel like I did, for most part, that was all information that I kind of heard before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it felt like it was very kind of intro to neurodiversity affirming.
And for some people, this is still new to them.
For sure.
And so glad that we have that information. Next session was not one that I learned the most out of, but was definitely a personal favorite. A pup with a purpose. Shut up. Animal assisted therapies in the language preschool. Get me, buddy, you're coming to work with me.
Yes.
Like this. Oh my gosh. Maggie, this is from your alma mater. So I can't get over, they had a therapy dog, and they've been tracking the just impacts it's had on pragmatic and other language skills. And they've seen huge growth in their children by having like a therapy dog participate in class.
Yeah.
It was so precious. The dog was so good.
Such a good dog.
Such a good dog. So anyways, and there were other SLPs in the crowd who do animal assisted therapy at their school, and like have like sibling Australian shepherds that they've trained to like do therapy with.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I feel like I totally was, almost every piece of information in that session was completely new to me. Like I never even thought about that. Never thought about it. Yeah. But it was really, really cool. And yes, it was at the Mizzou Combs Language Preschool, which I did a clinical rotation in as a grad student. And unfortunately, the therapy dog was after my time there. So I did not get to actually participate in it, but it sounds really cool. And I feel like for the autistic population, it could be like a real game changer. Oh,
hi. Hello, Diamond.
What? Oh, that hurt my arm so bad. What?
She said, I can be a therapy dog.
No, she needs a therapy dog.
She needs, Diamond needs a therapy dog.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that they talked about was the difference between a therapy dog, like a task trained like service dog, and an emotional support animal. And the dog that they have is a like therapy dog, like a building, I think they call it a facility dog.
Yes. So not a service dog, not like a medical service dog, but yeah, a facility dog and a therapy dog.
And so with that, but one of the things that they talked about is that because of this, they have had several families of children with autism get service dogs who are helping them with sleep regulation, who are helping them with elopement, and have been trained to do like safety awareness jobs to help support their child with autism. And I cried the whole time. It was so awesome.
Yes, so there were several moments that I genuinely teared up.
Yes.
Like hearing stories of how beneficial this animal has been to these kids. And the elopement thing is what really stuck with me because I've got several runners right now on my caseload. And it is a very, very dangerous thing. Elopement can be really, really dangerous. So unrelated yesterday, or not unrelated on topic, but randomly yesterday, I met a Mastiff, which is the biggest dog I've ever seen in my freaking life. If you've ever seen a Mastiff before, it's seriously like a horse. Like I asked Turner, I was like, how much do you think that dog weighs? And he said like probably like 180, almost 200 pounds. So giant animal. Enormous. And I was just thinking, some of these like gentle giant breeds, if you have a kid with autism who elopes, having like a service animal that is trained to help them, basically, like the way it was described is that the child is kind of tethered to the dog. So the child has a lead and the parent has a lead. And the dog is trained to like sit or lay down if the child starts to elope. So basically like they can't, which is really great for busy areas or like walking along the streets or in parking lots and that kind of thing. So I thought that was really cool. And then meeting that Mastiff yesterday, I was like, wow, you know who would be great for that?
I have a job for you.
I got a job for you, buddy.
That's awesome.
You gotta keep these kids safe.
Yes. The last session that I went to was a school services update. And basically it was a session for school-based SLPs to come in and like identify what advocacy things are like on the forefront of their minds and like issues that are happening statewide, both regarding changes that DESE has made, our Department of Education, elementary and secondary education has made, and just general issues. Missouri is having legislative change that is now requiring RTI to be able to qualify for language impairment. And several school districts do not have the manpower or the hours to be able to do it. And so it's pushing a lot of people out of compliance. And so that was one of the problem solving things that we talked about was, and workload versus caseload, huge conversation at this session, which was just like, how do you quantify what we do? And how can we get fairly compensated for that? How can we show that we need another SLP and things like that? MSHA is updating their workload calculator to be more user-friendly. Thank God. I don't know if you've ever tried to use it. I can't figure it out. And so they're updating that in July. And so they were very adamant that like, hey, when it comes out in July, do the workload calculator and take it to your district to show like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how much work this caseload requires, because caseload versus workload are not the same thing. And so, that was another big issue that other districts are having. So
the distinction between workload and caseload. So caseload is how many therapy minutes you're actually serving. And then workload is like that plus everything else that you do, right? So like attending IEP meetings, writing IEPs, documenting, prepping, et cetera, et cetera.
Programming AAC devices. I don't know if you already said that. Or just even, it's the everything else of it. How many times you get stopped in the hallway to talk about a kid at a teacher's work or that a teacher's concerned about. Extra meetings like RTI meetings, because I go an hour a week. I am in an RTI meeting, right? And so like there's a lot of work that goes into that. And so Anyways, if you're an SLP in Missouri, definitely join MSHA. That was my big takeaway from that session, and my takeaway from the entire conference is that MSHA has its own lobbyist. Did you know that? I didn't.
No.
I know. That is what MSHA dues go for, is paying her salary. And I know. So anyways, if you're not a MSHA member, she works overtime for us. So anyways,
okay, I will have to become a MSHA member.
$70 a year. I have now also girl bossed my way into, it's really not that bad. I girl bossed my way into also being on a subcommittee for school-based services that's going to meet quarterly to help discuss like statewide concerns. So anyways, you should join MSHA because I didn't realize how much they do for us in the state of Missouri. So I was impressed.
Yeah. Wow. I am also like kind of embarrassed to say I also didn't realize how much they did for us.
Right?
Because MSHA does some stuff for us, but not as much as they probably could be doing, in my opinion. So
yeah. No, it was really, that was my big takeaway from that, is that like it's going to be through these statewide advocacy agencies and through our like organizations that we're going to see real change for SLPs in the state of Missouri.
Wow.
And the vibe from most of the conversations we've had about advocacy at this conference was like, hey, nobody's coming to save us. We have got to start advocating for ourselves.
No, seriously. Well, oh gosh. And something, I wonder if this came up at all, because something that I was thinking about this week, I did get to see a lot of my old professors, and I just had grad school on the brain because of MSHA this week. So we've talked about this in person before, but I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on the pod. Our master's degree, my master's degree was 66 credit hours.
Mine, I remember having this conversation because mine was the lowest out of all of our friends, and mine was still like 45 or 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to put that, so that's what we're working with. The Masters of Science or Arts or whatever in speech language pathology is a beefy master's degree. Yeah. It's a full-time professional program with clinical clock hours included, but not as part of that, like, graduate hours. Like that was just like the didactic work. So it's intensive. And at least in every district that I have worked for as an SLP, if you go in, you are on the same salary schedule as the teachers. And because of our master's degree, we get put on the same salary track as like a teacher with a master's of education. And this is not a dig on the Masters of Ed. It is just, I'm trying to highlight the difference here, because the Masters of Ed is usually around 20 credit hours.
Or 36. I see a lot. So it's like a very apples to broccoli comparison. Like it's like, it's not even apples to oranges because they're very, very different things. And that I've been fortunate enough to work at 2 districts that recognize that difference and had put SLPs in their own salaries track because of that. But I didn't start out that way. I did not. My very first year, I was on a teacher master's salary schedule, and I made $47,000.
Yes. Yeah, I think one of the places that I applied, the salary, and this, now I'm thinking back to like 6 years ago, because it was one of my first jobs that I applied for out of grad school. SLPs were on the teacher pay schedule, and I think they were paying teachers with a bachelor's degree like $28,000 a year or something. And that, I just remember being like, yikes.
Yeah.
This is in 2021, guys. Like, it was not that long ago. So, but that was just something that I do believe that SLPs should be compensated better, especially in the schools. And I think that the only way is that's going to happen is if it is legislated to happen.
Yes.
Because which also requires a lot of other moving pieces, because that would have a disproportionate impact on rural and low-income school districts. Yes, we know this. It's not just one box to check, but SLPs are burning out in the schools because we are paid poorly, despite our massive amount of training and education. So
with that too, a conversation that I had never heard of in the workload versus caseload argument was that the reason why several people in this conversation were against caseload caps And I had never heard somebody say that before. And their whole mindset was because caseload caps create a minimum. And so, yes, it's the maximum you have, but now you're saying, oh, well, the caseload cap for the state is 40. You only have 30 kids. You can get 10 more kids on your caseload. Like, I had never heard that before.
Me neither.
And I was like, I've never thought about it that way.
You know what? Don't tell Jack. You know what I think this makes me think of? The speed limit. It's just like,
yes,
like technically the speed limit is the fastest that you should be going. Yes. And a lot of people don't treat it that way.
And they actually calculate that into setting speed limits on roads. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
No, because they expect you to go between 5 and 10 over. And so they set speed limits accordingly. Because of that, at least in the state of Missouri.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, but that totally is like, I 100% see that argument of like, oh, well, your caseload cap, which is supposed to be your maximum, is 40,
but like the minimum that you have to have, like, oof. Or like it's the bar for what you need.
It is the bar.
It's the bar, not treated as a ceiling, but as like a requirement.
And I wonder, because I wasn't there for that discussion, so you might have the answer to this, but I wonder if does like, well, because therapy minutes, so like you and I have worked in some like functional academic skills classrooms where the kids have a lot of therapy minutes. So having like 15 kids that have an hour or more of therapy per week is a lot. So that's only 15 kids, but it would be the same as 30 kids that have 30 minutes of speech only, you know?
Yep.
So does that fall under like caseload or workload?
That falls under workload. And so, because they're just looking at total minutes that you service, regardless of the amount of children that you see. And so I brought up the example with like my small group that I was talking about was that I had worked at 2 schools, both of which with life skills programs, both of which with different amounts of life skill needs. And so at my previous school, I was doing 2,000 minutes of therapy a week, and I had 20 kids on my caseload. And at my current school, I've got 40 kids on my caseload, much less on my life skills caseload. I still see I see a few kids, but not nearly as many. I've got 40 kids on my caseload, and I'm still doing 2,000 therapy minutes. And so like I'm doing the same amount of work for different amounts of kids. And so,
okay. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at. So like, that's interesting that would not fall under caseload. Like the therapy minutes is not. So caseload is measured by
number how many of kids students. Do you see?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I'm seeing how that could not be helpful. It could be like kind of not helpful.
I had never thought about that. Like, man, we need caseload caps. No, we don't. Apparently, we need workload caps.
What we need is a workload cap.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. Totally blew my mind. I had not thought about it that way. So
wow.
Fascinating.
Dang. Well, cool. Yeah.
I know, right? So anyways, I'm excited to be on this subcommittee and do some problem solving. We now have, just from like true sheer luck of who signed up, we have somebody from every single quadrant of Missouri. We have St. Louis area, we've got Kansas City area, we've got North Missouri, we have Central Missouri, Southeast and Southwest Missouri.
That's crazy. Great.
So anyways, got a representation all over, and we got SLPAs who signed up. So I was like, rock on.
Oh, awesome. So I'm starting to really, really love SLPAs.
I had an SLPA student this summer who was completing her like clinical hours before she could become an SLPA, and I love her.
Yeah. And I say I'm starting to love SLPAs, not because I hated them before, but because I just I had never worked with an SLPA. And now I've had the school district I work part-time for has several employed that I don't interact with a ton, but I have gotten to a little bit. And I'm like, wait, no, this is really cool. So very neat. Okay. So that was your Monday, right?
That was Monday. You went to a couple different sessions though than I did.
I did. I went to the early intervention panel, which was a group of therapists, like multidisciplinary therapists. So there were occupational therapists there, some physical therapists there, and also some OTAs and an SLPA as well. And they were mostly the focus of the conversation was on First Steps, which is like Missouri's birth to 3 early intervention program. It's free to families, and it's largely like in-home or in community therapy. I've only ever had one singular First Steps kid. I had one First Steps client. I liked it, but then I just kind of wound up taking my work a different direction. But it was good. It was good kind of refresher. It was definitely a lot of information about working on like a multidisciplinary team and co-treating, which is great and something that I get to do a lot now in my school placement. I co-treat with OT every week. It's great. I mean, you and I, like, we love the allied health professions. I think OTs and PTs are amazing, and I've learned so much from them and rely on them a lot. So especially for our complex kiddos. And then I'm trying to think of the other one that I went to that you didn't.
Oh, it was like a professional, like separating yourself.
Oh, yeah.
How was that? Yeah.
It was good. It was, so it was led by a physician who actually gave the keynote speech or session, keynote speaker. I don't know if you went to that. I guess on Tuesday. Okay. She's a physician who also does some, I think, like life coaching and uses like some principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT, to like help shape our identity, like how you see yourself, because that has a lot, that kind of builds the foundation for how we navigate the world, is how you see yourself as an individual. So I thought it was really good. There were definitely some helpful nuggets in there of like things I hadn't thought about before. Like I hadn't really thought about doing any kind of identity work like that.
Yeah.
So I think that could definitely be useful. I had a chance to ask a question because I am having a really hard time compartmentalizing. I'm not good at it. I'm a very emotional person, very like sensitive person. And so even though I can take on a lot, I feel like an emotion sponge sometimes. So like I just like absorb
all.
Yes. Yeah. I absorb the emotion of like the room that I'm in. And that can be really great socially because I feel like I read the room really well and can kind of like adapt and be empathetic in that. But when bad things happen or when hard things happen, it's hard for me sometimes to like move on, or like not let it affect me for the rest of the day. And it's something I've certainly gotten better at it. I was worse when I started as an SLP, but you and I have talked about, just because of the areas, like the regions we've worked in, it's been, we've had to walk with kids through some really hard stuff. And I've also done some work in domestic violence and, now with like medical complexity and severe disability, it can get really heavy. So I asked her like about her advice on like compartmentalizing, and she basically recommended like you have to do it, but you also have to process. Like you can't just put your feelings in a box and never address it. Like you have to give yourself time to process those feelings or events or what have you in a healthy way. Otherwise you will burn out. So yeah.
Do you practice, like, I call them airlocks, where like in between coming home and going to work, I have like time in what I call the airlock, aka my car, where it's like preparing to go into one or the other? Because let me tell you, airlock time saves my sanity when it comes to separating work and home, and just being like, okay, I've got to put this down now between work and home. So highly recommend finding something that you can do in between. Yeah.
Well, tell me more about that, because I have pretty long commutes, and I've always kind of used that as like brain off time, to just like we think so much during our work, like you're on always. that having a nice long commute before I get home is really helpful to just like listen to music or listen to my podcast or whatever and just like not really think. But I haven't had intentional, like I'm moving from this role to this role time. So I wonder what you do.
Yeah. So on my way to work, I go to work early and I sit in the car and drink my coffee for 10 minutes before work just to be like, okay, this is what we're doing, kind of getting in the mindset, kind of planning and organizing my things for when I come like go to work and like things I need to do, take my moment of intention and just drink my coffee and enjoy the sunrise because my where I park at my work overlooks a sheep farm and also a solar field. And so I get to watch the little sheep in the morning and watch the sun come up. I love it. So anyways, I sit for just 10 minutes and kind of have like, all right, let's get in the mindset. And then same thing coming home where I just take a little bit of time in the car to be like, process anything that I've had to happen during the day and be like, wow, that was crazy. And I immediately go take a shower.
Yes.
And then just kind of let the day wash off. And then by the time I'm done with my shower, I'm like, okay, I'm in the mindset to be home. Like this is my time. So
nice. I will have to try and bring some more intention into that, I think. Because yeah, I definitely have the time baked into my schedule of like commuting to my school or my office or whatever, and then back home. So that's a really good idea.
And sometimes it takes like verbally being like, I'm putting this down now, Francie. Like I had like an email exchange with another adult where I was like, I can't respond to you anymore. Like I'm gonna set this down, and this can be a Monday issue at this point. Like putting it down. In my car, I'm saying this out loud to myself. I'm putting this down now, and I'm getting out of the car.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I have to give myself a talking to of just like, all right, we're done with this. Like this is over. Switch to this thing now.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, I thought there were definitely some like kind of helpful tips and tricks from that talk for sure.
Also on Monday, not 1, not 2, but 3 tornado warnings. Yeah. 2 at MSHA, and then when myself and one of my coworkers who went with me to MSHA were out at dinner, another one went off, and we were like, "No, are you gonna?" We seriously were like, "Are you gonna make us go into like the walk-in freezer?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Do you want to?" And I was like, "No, I really want to eat my orange chicken, please and thank you." And they were like, "Yeah, fine. We'll call you if it's starting to get too scary." So I was like, "Thank God."
Incredible. Yes, that is why we didn't get dinner together on.
Yes.
I was like, I
gotta go home.
Yeah. So luckily, I don't think I live about 30, 40-ish minutes away from the conference center. And I don't remember that we had a warning in my area. So
no, just up there. While all of that is happening for us, did I tell you that morning in Springfield they had baseball-sized hail?
No.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
So at the same time that we were doing all of our tornado warnings, Springfield was getting pelted with historic sized hail, and it totaled so many cars. My personal friends, we had one person whose cars got totaled, another person who was having to like replace a windshield and like do quite a bit of work. And then on top of that, Jack was at work at the time, and he had 2 coworkers whose patrol cars got like just jacked up. Like all like front windshield completely spider webbed. Like, I'm very fortunate. We live in a brick house, but my neighbors' houses who have siding have like Swiss cheese siding now.
No.
It was great. Hold on, I got a picture of the hail. It was bonkers how big the hail was.
That is terrible. I think the last time we had significant hail here, it was a couple years ago, and it was like 6 weeks after I bought my car. And of course, at the time, we didn't have a garage, and so I was just standing at the window watching my brand new car get pelted with hail.
Yeah.
Okay, for people listening, I'm looking at a picture on Francie's phone of a person holding a palm-sized hailstone.
This is one of my friends who lives and works in North Springfield. And it's
unreal.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh my God.
Crazy. It was ginormous. So anyways, unfortunately, it like primarily hit the airport, and so everybody's cars who are in long-term parking are destroyed.
No.
And so, fortunately, a nonprofit organization out of Springfield came over and like put tarps on everybody's cars who were in long-term parking. And so I love Springfield. Let me talk about it. But they have great community here. So they came out and put tarps on everybody's car. So it was nuts. So at the same time that all this is happening, I'm like, man, I might be in a tornado warning, but my car is not dying right now.
Yeah, we didn't get any hail here, I don't think. So dang.
Yeah, it was crazy. So Springfield's kind of recovering from the hail of 2026. So
yeah. Oh my God.
It was nuts. It was nuts.
Well, you also were at MSHA Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes.
What were your big takeaways from those days? Wednesday was a half day, right?
Yeah, Wednesday was a half day. Okay. Big takeaways. First session of the day was taught by an SLP who had been an SLP for like 10 or 15 years, then switched to being a SPED teacher, and then got her PhD and is now teaching at Mizzou in their special education like school, and is now going to law school to do SPED law.
Who is this person?
I cannot remember her name. Hold on, I can look it up.
Smartest person ever. Oh my gosh. Or like so driven
with her, and she was funny. She was a great presenter too. She was such an icon. Dr. Lisa Gorin.
Wow.
Icon. Okay. She was awesome. And so her big thing was talking about SLPs and specifically design instruction and how SDI is kind of mandated by IDEA, but it's kind of nebulous as to what it is. And so this kind of goes back to if you've ever written an IEP and heard the terms golden thread. This talks a lot about what is the golden thread, right? Yeah. Have you ever heard that term before?
I have. I have. So a recent PD presentation that I had to attend for my school job was on that, and that was the first time I had ever heard that term golden thread, so I didn't know it was common. But yeah, it was basically like everything kind of has to tie back to there should be this like golden thread that ties every goal to the child's academic experience
and their like current levels of functioning. Yeah. Okay. So you should kind of see themes and trends and justification throughout the entirety of the IEP. And so what specially designed instruction is what gets you from their current functioning to their mastery of their new goals and where you want them to be. And what does that look like? What does that mean? How do you do really high quality teaching in between point A and point B? And what is our role as SLPs in supporting that? And so it was a really fabulous session. She has a book about specially designed instruction that I'm actually probably going to read this summer. Yeah. So anyways, I was very impressed. One of the big takeaways from that session too, there's no one big takeaway from the day. The day was so long that I have like multiple from each session. Big takeaway from that is because of the dismantling of the Department of Ed, for parents and students to get legal recourse if they are wronged in schools, they can no longer oftentimes go through the channels that had previously existed, like due process, because there's nobody there to work them. And so they are now seeing, right. And so now what they're seeing is people turning to like actual lawsuits instead of going through due process. And so one of the things that's going to help schools when they go through lawsuits is by having really high quality, specially designed instruction. And how are you tracking that data? And how are you justifying these goals? And so just really crossing your T's and dotting your I's as a district through really high quality SDI, because we're going to see more lawsuits be brought against districts in this day and age. So that was my big takeaway, was like, it is important. And it's nice to hear that reframed in a way, because you hear golden thread a lot. And so she was like, no, like, yes, golden thread, but like, here's the way, here's the 2-step test. How are they currently functioning? Where do you want them to be? Equals what you're going to do in the meantime. And so I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes total sense. Next session was becoming a sensory smart and strong, AAC strong, talking about how you need sensory regulation before you can see AAC output. That was, they just gave some really good hands-on strategies for like, hey, here's some like practical sensory tasks and sensory supports for kids. It was really awesome. So that was nice.
This we should do a future podcast episode about this because I was thinking at MSHA on Monday, like the word sensory and the word regulation and dysregulation have become buzzwords. Like they are very buzzy.
Yes. And I anytime that something gets, you and I've talked about this for multiple other topics, anytime something gets the pop psychology treatment, it kind of cheapens what it actually means.
Yeah.
And so big takeaway from that is oftentimes our kids who are in wheelchairs do not get their sensory needs met at the rate of their peers who do not use wheelchairs because they are not up and running around the classroom. And so once again, I was like, oh my gosh. And so they gave how to provide sensory input for kids with complex bodies. That was my big takeaway from that.
Very nice.
Which was very nice. Next was exploring social media ethics through a professional lens. I texted you about this one because I was like, wow, nice. Takeaway from that is that most SLP Facebook groups are run by people who are trying to sell you things. And that's crazy.
And they don't like disclose that information?
No. And sometimes like they're now seeing people who are like anonymously posting like, hey, do you have any recommendations for this? And then somebody else will recommend like the course that they're actually selling. And so like it's all kind of like hidden marketing.
No,
I know. That was my big takeaway from that.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. That's shady.
Yes. Next session taught by the same person. So these two sessions were done by the listening SLP, who is on Instagram, and she was fabulous. She was a really fabulous speaker. She also was one that I was like, I love when a speaker is so engaging and like it's fun to watch them talk. She did great. Next session was elevating our school-based assessments in today's world, the power of a language sample. And so I was like, duh, I love that. And then, but I suck at doing language samples because I never want to do SALT, because you can't catch me post-grad school coding a language sample like that.
Yeah, so I have not done like a full-blown true language sample.
My biggest takeaway from this is that you should be doing more language sampling and doing more language observations, and her recommendation for that was SLAM cards, and I had forgotten about SLAM cards. They're free. Didn't totally was a resource that I heard about in grad school then never explored, and twice in two separate sessions people were like, you should be using SLAM cards, and I was like, to test like language functioning.
Take a look.
Like, yes. They are free. They're also, I believe, norm referenced for like they're like super evidence-based, entirely free to help elicit language samples. Also, they spoke about the power of a good language skills checklist to be able to mark off as you're doing the language sample just for your own like data collection purposes. And she had a recommendation for one on Teachers Pay Teachers that's free. Anyways, so powerful. So powerful.
Incredible.
I know. I love that. Next session was the session that like is the one that's like tumbling around my head still that I can't get out of my head, which was speech sound therapy for children with oral structural differences. The whole session was dedicated to these are the alternative ways to teach a target speech sound to children with cleft lip palate, or other craniofacial differences. And when I tell you, I left that session being like, you can make the F sound inverted, and like, yes. So where we typically
that's how I make
our bottom lip and our top teeth, you can flip it and use your top lip and your bottom teeth.
Oh, that's not how I make it. I was thinking like forward versus
for children who have, and so they basically said, here's the sound that you want to teach, here's every other way you could teach it for whatever like craniofacial difference you have.
Okay, so I have done this a little bit where I had a student with cerebral palsy, and I did teach some alternative speech sound, like production type things, but interesting.
There were several others that she was like, here's how we taught. Like they also talked about a student that they had who had macroglossia, and these here has in the presence of a tongue that is too large for the mouth, here's how we taught all of these sounds because he was only producing K and G. And when you don't have a fine tongue tip, how do you make that sound?
Wow.
And so they chained it off of M and N. And so they did M for B and P, and they did N for T and D.
Yeah.
And so they just use different. Right? I was like,
you and I are like such shaking. Language girlies.
Oh, we're such nerds.
We're such language girlies that like when speech, especially like orofacial stuff comes up, I'm always like, this should be its own specialty. Honestly,
it's its own specialty, truly. And it was fascinating. I feel so much more better prepared for a child with craniofacial differences now. And the resources that they handed out from that were amazing. And it was basically like, here's in summation everything that we said and how to do it.
Wow.
Take it. And I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Didn't you send me pictures of that?
I did. I was like, Maggie, take these 2-for-1 special.
2-for-1 special.
It was awesome. It was awesome. And then same thing when they had another like case study of a child with Mobius syndrome, which is like where the face is paralyzed due to the nerves not innervating the muscles of the face. And so how can you make labial based sounds when you have no lip function? And this child that they were working with figured out ways like a ventriloquist almost to make sounds that were perfect without using their lips.
Oh.
And the therapist, like the lead therapist was like, I had to not look at, like, I put up like a blinder between us and I would make the sound and then have them imitate it. And we would basically like reinforce the ones that sounded audio perceptively closest. Wow. And then we would look at their face because we couldn't, like, it was like throwing us off as like providers to like.
Yeah.
And
well, that like McGurk
and they could
effect.
do it. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Like, I got tingles and like goosebumps the whole time. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
My jaw is dropped like listening to this because ventriloquism, that well, so a lot of like speech therapy kind of before the Second World War, it was a lot of like elocution and like this kind of like articulation, like speaking voice type deal, like the movie My Fair Lady. They're teaching her to get rid of her like Cockney accent, which is classist. But we're moving on. I love that movie actually, but I feel like SLPs should consult with like ventriloquists.
So the lead, so this presentation was done by the cleft lip palate team at St. Louis Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
And the lead SLP was like this close to actually contacting a ventriloquist for this particular case until the child figured it out by themselves. Big takeaway too is that oftentimes, and I early in my practice have said this too, where you've come across a kid with cleft lip palate and you're like, well, we'll wait till the surgeries because we don't want to have to. No, she said we should be using the same concepts we do with kids with retainers, which is their brains will figure it out. We should be relying on neuroplasticity more when we're working with articulation and craniofacial differences because they will figure it out. And for this child, she did not need to actually go to the ventriloquist because they just figured it out. And so,
it was so fascinating. We should have a ventriloquist on the show.
I'm gonna be like, how do you do that? How do you make these nasal sounds with just your tongue? Like that's the part. Like,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Wow.
So, anyways,
that's so cool. I'm obsessed.
It was the coolest session. I out of all of the ones that I went to, I was like, oh my gosh, I have very few people in my entire career that this would actually apply to, and this is the coolest information I've ever heard. Like in the back pocket for whenever I need it now, because wow, talk about something that like actively changed my practice. So.
But even so, you and I talk about all the time, even people that don't work with kids that have like craniofacial differences, because that is a specialty. Like cleft lip and palate is a specialty. You're not really handling that in the schools very often. Most SLPs work in the schools, blah, blah, blah. But what it teaches, and I think like a big like nugget of wisdom from that is like, be creative. Don't just like throw your hands up and be like, well, I tried, the first thing I thought of and that didn't work. So I guess, and I don't think that a lot of SLPs are doing that to be malicious, but I think that, if you're overwhelmed and you have a bunch of other kids on your caseload and the stuff you're trying isn't working, it can be really disappointing to like keep trying new stuff.
And it's also to balance that with like presuming positive intent for providers. I know for me, if I don't know how to properly treat a child, I don't want to be treating them wrong. And so I don't want to be doing more damage by doing therapy improperly.
Yes.
If it's something I'm not super familiar about. And so
it's like walking that line of like, we want to be doing evidence-based practice, but we also want to be doing what works. And sometimes getting a ventriloquist in to teach a kid with a cleft palate how to make the sound is what works, even though there's not a body of literature that supports that.
And so it was so fascinating. Also, to take away from that, majority of grad programs are now eliminating their cleft lip palate classes and their classes about craniofacial differences. So there's even less information out there for new providers. And so,
is it just because like surgery has become so much more common?
No, it has more to do with resources within grad programs and having the time. And so they're lumping it now into like articulation courses instead of having it be its own class. Just division of resources and people who are available to teach that with the knowledge and know-how. And so,
yeah, I'm trying to.
I don't think I had a dedicated. No. I think it was I remember learning about it in my articulation classes.
I think now that I'm like really thinking about it, because we definitely talked about it. I think it was in speech disorders though. I think we talked about it in my speech disorders class. If I'm wrong, sorry, but I think that's when we talked about it. Anyway, very cool. My mind is so blown by that.
So cool. Last day was a half day. And also 3 beautifully done sessions. Probably 3 of my, after this cleft lip palate and craniofacial differences session, probably 3 of my favorites. First one was data-driven, or building a data-driven process for identifying speech and language RTI. RTI. If you know me in my life outside of this podcast, you know that this is the only thing that's been in my brain this whole school year, because it's become such a big deal in Missouri now. And it should be. Oh my gosh. And so this session was led by an SLP for SSD, Special School District of St. Louis. And her whole job is just creating RTI programs for districts that are serviced by SSD. And so she was emphasizing in this session that your intake process for teacher concerns and having a very streamlined and efficient and data-driven intake process will make designing tier 2 and tier 3 easier in the long run. And so this whole session was dedicated to how do you do that?
Wow.
And it was very fascinating. I really enjoyed it. She's another great presenter where I was like, you're just fun to watch. And so very fascinating. Got some really good nuggets of information from that. Their big thing is that we should be treating RTI like we do early intervention services. It is not the same as school-based delivery services. It should be treated like EI. Because that's what it is. It's early intervention, just for school age populations.
So when I think of EI and the big difference between early intervention and a school-based service, I think of like in the natural environment. So is that like in the home? Is that what they're getting at?
They're getting at teaching skills to close developmental gaps. And really targeting how can we close developmental gaps in the presence or in the absence of disability, and really identifying what is the specific skill that is causing you to lag behind, and not just like here's the not teaching RTI is not a person, RTI is not a program, RTI is not accommodations and modifications. What are we doing to directly teach the skill that's going to catch you up to your peers?
You just used the phrase that was in my head this whole time, which is direct teaching. Like, I think that we would have fewer kids in special education, especially with language minutes, if they had better or more direct teaching of
and so
academic skills.
This is also coming at a very interesting time in Missouri because our YCDD, our early childhood identification code, has now been extended 1 year and is good up until first grade now, or till 7, with it previously being 6. So this means we can really target RTI at this kindergarten level and target these services to these kindergartners both through an IEP and now through RTI, to really catch up kids who are coming in. Maybe they didn't have preschool because preschool is not required and kindergarten is not required in the state of Missouri. So really
don't even get me started on
right?
Kindergarten's not required.
Yeah. A takeaway from me
it should be
from this, it should be. Part of the takeaways is that we need to be treating kindergarten like early intervention services too, and treating it more like not necessarily preschool, but with that same mindset of we're catching kids up who have developmental gaps. So anyways, that was my big takeaway from that one. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, and like, yes, preschool is teaching. Actually, no, I'm not even going to say that. The biggest benefit of preschool is that it teaches kids how to be at school, and it gives them the schemas that they will fill in later. So when we teach things like the alphabet and early phonics and pre-literacy skills, like how to orient a book, how to hold it and turn the pages, how to read with an adult,
turn taking behaviors, how do you share with a peer?
Yes. Even things like early academics, like labeling shapes, labeling colors, learning to count, all of that stuff is like teaching them. It's kind of giving them the like chicken wire framework that they're going to use for the rest of their education. And so like, just because like a 3-year-old can already name their shapes and colors doesn't mean that they don't need preschool, because preschool teaches them everything else.
Everything. And there's a lot of little soft skills that go into being a learner. Not just how do you turn and take how do you advocate for yourself when your marker is stuck? How do you do these little problem solving things that maybe you have a conflict with a peer? How do you mediate that? That we teach at just little itty bitty ages. And so that are important skills to be able to be good at school. And so anyways, I think treating RTI like early intervention, and then also supporting kindergarten as kind of this like expanded world for early intervention. And I'm talking about EI in two different ways here. Early intervention for RTI being like a service delivery model to close gaps, and early intervention truly like, I mean, ECSE type stuff. Like an extended preschool almost, to really help support kids, because we're getting kids in that are a lot more variable in their skills, even than I think like at the beginning of my career. Like we just have just a wide array of kids who come to kindergarten, which I'm glad they're here. And so anyways,
when I started working as a speech therapist in 2021, the story was, it's COVID kids, it's the pandemic, it's masking, it's blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's 2026. What's the story? Like, it's because it's not COVID. Like, that's not what did it. That doesn't explain all of this. So, I think that is a great, education has to adapt to meet the needs of the kids that are coming in, because the needs are different than they were 10 years ago.
And you talk to any longtime teacher and they'll say that wholeheartedly, where like kids are just different these days. If you want my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, it's ed tech, but that's neither here nor there. I
think you're gamifying education was in hindsight probably not the way to go, but I am not a teacher, so that's all I'll say on that.
That's all. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it for that. My next session was partnering for success, integrating communication support school wide, and this was how to better harness your role as an SLP with the adults at your schools. And so and this was how to.
I saw a Reddit post on r/SLP, which we have utilized for this podcast multiple times. But it was basically the like, I'm tired of advocating. Like, I'm tired of explaining to other people why my job is important. And so was it kind of in that vein, or was it in like,
it was in that vein, and also like, how do I maximize teaching teachers, and how do I maximize teaching students at the same time? And this focused on, one, making sure that you are in on your building's RTI team, data team, whatever you call them, because you have important insights for kids who are not just on your caseload, and it will make you a very valuable tool on problem solving teams when you have a child who is not performing at grade level, but maybe isn't at the point of needing SPED testing yet. You as an SLP are there to help kind of see and problem solve and having a different lens. So being a part of those data teams and conversations, one. Second thing, co-teaching. And really, I'm getting ready to do this next year with our life skills team, and with our we have a program called SCOPE, social communication, blah, 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 blah.
OPE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's for a lot of our students who have who might have more average or lower support academic needs, but still need sensory and communication supports. And so I'm planning on doing co-teaching. Myself and my co-SLP right now are planning on doing co-teaching for next year, to one, help the kids in really purposeful moments, because communication happens very organically, and teaching communication in an organic manner. Beautiful. And this goes back to talking about what we were talking about earlier with creating a language enriched, immersive environment for our AAC users. So making sure that we have these really intentional language immersion times through co-teaching. And then also when you co-teach, it shows the teacher how to teach communication. It teaches the paras how to support communication. And so you're kind of hitting two birds with one stone, because yes, you're getting your minutes done. And yes, you're also showing and empowering the adults in that classroom on how to support this child. So that was really great. And then the last part of that was designing really strong in-services. And how, as you as an SLP, what in-services can you do to help support your teachers? And when can that happen? And how do you do that? So that's very good.
If you have time off mic,
yeah,
I have a very specific question to talk to you about that, because I need some guidance and I did not go to that session. So if you don't mind doing a 2-for-1 special and telling me everything,
Maggie and I have done this for years now, where one of us will get a professional development training or material and do what we call a 2-for-1 special, and either inform the other person or make copies of the materials. I love copyright infringement. So sorry.
Yeah, sorry guys. It's just that we were really, really broke, brand new baby SLPs that worked in a rural school district for years. So
2-for-1 special, baby.
We did what we could.
As for sessions that had one of the most profound impacts on things that I can start applying to my practice today, was the last session, low SEE, high stakes, syntax that speaks. This whole session was talking about how can we more accurately gauge the language abilities of our students from low socioeconomic environments that is not vocabulary based. Maggie and I have talked about this for years off mic, and I think a little bit on mic. Vocabulary is very world knowledge dependent. And when you come from an environment that has lower opportunities, and just life is harder for you, and so you don't get to do a lot of those enriching things or whatever life circumstances, blah, blah, blah.
AKA like tangible example. Family can't afford to pay $160 to take everybody to the St. Louis Aquarium for a weekend.
Yep.
The family that can afford that, those kids are getting exposure to new vocabulary, new experiences, new like biomes, different like schemas and categories of knowledge that the other family who cannot afford that experience does not have access to. So like that's the very tangible way. It's not because poor people are worse. Like, please do not hear this.
Once again, this session started with talking about how the word gap study is so deeply flawed.
Yeah.
And so the better way to judge language skills for people who are from lower socioeconomic environments is through their syntax, and how all languages and all dialects have obligatory syntax. Familiarize yourself with that, and then take a language sample. This is the second place where slam cards came up, and see what does their syntax look like. And so they talked about how oftentimes people from lower socioeconomic environments may have simpler sentence structures. So maybe they're not using these crazy, weird, complex sentences that people from higher socioeconomic environments do. But look at just the obligatory syntax. What are the required rules of this language? Are they adhering to it? Yes or no? And so not necessarily cutting vocabulary out of the picture, but just heavily emphasizing syntax as a better way to gauge language ability. Once again, through a language sample. Very cool. So anyways, I was like, oh no, I've had this happen multiple times this year where they're like, oh my God, I had a teacher who's been like, oh my God, this kid is like a 5-alarm fire. Oh my gosh. And I have to be like, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. They're just poor. Please stop being mean to my friends who cannot afford to have these really robust experiences.
No, girl, we've talked, another whole episode topic is addressing our implicit bias.
Classism. Yeah.
Classism.
Our implicit classism.
Our implicit, yeah. Because we've talked about ableism. We've talked a little bit about racism, but racism and classism go hand in hand in America. So like we need to, but yeah, anyway, moving on.
Anyways, if you work in an environment that has children from lower socioeconomic environments, look at their syntax instead. And so anyways, that was beautiful. It was a beautiful session. And so once again, things that I can actively take over to my practice immediately and be like, nope, they're fine. Yeah. Or maybe they're not fine and we need to do something different. And so anyways, those are all of our sessions at MSHA. It was really wonderful. Wow. So I know.
Well, I've learned a lot just from hearing you recap your experience, and I do have some very specific questions for you. But very cool. I will try to get the early bird pricing and go to the whole thing next year.
I'm going to advocate that. I would even pay for it out of pocket at this point because it was such a good experience. One of the things that I love about the field of speech language pathology, one, we're so tiny and very close-knit. Two, nothing makes me happier than going and listening to people's life's work. Oftentimes the people presenting these sessions are researchers who this is their whole life and they just want to share this information with you. And nothing makes me feel more enriched than watching somebody talk about the thing that they're passionate about. And it's just a really beautiful time. And so oftentimes they're like, yes, take this free resource. Yes, I'll send you the research article. Like, please take my slides. Like, I want this information out there. And as a clinician, I'm like, give me all of it because I will take it and use it. Give me whole hands. So anyways, that was really special. So I'm going to really advocate to go to MSHA next year because it was so wonderful.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I mean, literally the only reason I didn't do all 3 days was because it was almost $600, which
and that's ASHA prices, baby.
A lot of money.
That's ASHA prices.
That's a lot of money. So I did 1 day. But next year I will try to budget a little better for it and also get my ticket earlier.
It was really wonderful. It is in Kansas City next year. So
yes,
heads up.
How fun. Oh my gosh, we'll be in your neck of the woods. Your half of the state.
Yeah, my half of the state now. Oh my gosh. So anyways, it was wonderful. I'm now a MSHA member and I'm probably going to stay a MSHA member. So.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much for recounting so much of your experience.
It was so nice to see you the day that you were there.
Yes. It was awesome. Yeah, to hang out and be IRL work wives again. Loved that for us. If listeners, if you want to see little snippets from our days at MSHA, we will be posting little mini vlogs to our socials. So be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, you can find us in all the usual places, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram at Tell Me About It and SLP Podcast or Tell Me About It SLP. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.